The Mediterranean, a sea of riches and rivalries, became the stage for a contest that would define Genoa's destiny. Venice, the queen of the Adriatic, stood as the Republic's most formidable adversary. Skirmishes became battles, and battles, a war of attrition. Genoese and Venetian fleets clashed repeatedly, their sails stained with the salt and spray of countless encounters. Among the Genoese captains, brave and cunning men rose to prominence. Their names became whispered amongst sailors, tales of their deeds sung in taverns from Liguria to the Levant. The rivalry was not merely about naval supremacy. It was a strategic dance for control of vital trade routes, lucrative markets, and the very pulse of Mediterranean commerce. The Fourth Crusade, a detour into infamy, proved to be a pivotal moment. The capture and sacking of Constantinople dealt a severe blow to Byzantine power, inadvertently handing Venice a significant advantage. Venice seized the opportunity, establishing a firm grip on Constantinople and its surrounding territories, diverting the flow of wealth and power into its coffers. Amidst the clash of empires, shrewd merchants like Paolo di Novi saw opportunity. Loyalty was a commodity, and profit the guiding star. Maria Giustiniani, ever watchful, sensed the treachery in the air. The games of merchants could have dire consequences for Genoa. The news from Constantinople reached Genoa like a storm. Simone Bicangra and other Genoese leaders knew that inaction was not an option. They had to reclaim their place in the eastern Mediterranean. Genoa responded with characteristic resilience. The shipyards roared to life, churning out new vessels, each designed to challenge Venetian dominance. Genoese captains launched daring raids against Venetian outposts, disrupting trade routes and sending a clear message. Genoa would not yield. The conflict, though fierce, reached an impasse. Exhausted by the constant warfare, both republics agreed to a truce, a fragile peace that masked the simmering animosity and the unyielding ambition that would soon ignite the Mediterranean once more. Genoa, driven by insatiable ambition and the need for resources, turned its gaze towards the islands of Corsica and Sardinia. These were not empty lands. They were fiercely independent, inhabited by proud islanders resistant to Genoese control. The initial Genoese landings on Corsica met with fierce resistance. The Corsicans, masters of their mountainous terrain, waged a relentless guerrilla war against the invaders. Each village became a fortress, each valley a potential ambush. In Sardinia, the situation was further complicated by the presence of rival powers, primarily the Pisans and the Aragonese. Genoa found itself embroiled in a complex web of alliances and conflicts, fighting not only the Sardinians but also other claimants to the island. While the struggles in Corsica and Sardinia dragged on, Genoa looked eastward. The Black Sea beckoned with the promise of new trade routes and access to the riches of the East. The establishment of Caffa in Crimea became Genoa's gateway to this new world. The defense of these far-flung colonies required a strong hand. Simone Bicangra, already a respected figure in Genoa, was entrusted with a critical mission: to secure Genoese interests in the Black Sea and protect Caffa from rival powers and local threats. Bicangra led a powerful fleet into the Black Sea, swiftly dealing with pirates and rival traders who threatened Genoese dominance. His decisive actions secured the sea lanes and solidified Genoa's control over Caffa. Beyond military strength, Bicangra understood the importance of diplomacy. He negotiated treaties with local Crimean leaders, ensuring peaceful trade relations and access to valuable resources. Caffa flourished under Genoese rule, becoming a vital hub for trade between Europe and Asia. Grain, furs, slaves, and spices flowed through the city, enriching Genoa and cementing its position as a major maritime power. Genoese settlers poured into Caffa, establishing families, building businesses, and transforming the city into a vibrant Genoese colony far from the shores of Italy. The city became a microcosm of Genoa itself, a testament to the Republic's ambition and reach. Back in Genoa, Maria Giustiniani anxiously awaits news from the colonies. The lifeblood of Genoa depends on the success of these ventures, but the risks are ever present. Paolo di Novi, ever the shrewd businessman, pores over the ledgers, calculating the profits and losses from Genoa's colonial ventures. He sees the immense potential, but also the inherent dangers in overextending the Republic's reach. Genoa's colonial ambitions had transformed it into a major power, but the seeds of future conflicts were already sown. The rivalry with Venice intensified, and the constant struggle to maintain control over distant territories would test the Republic's strength in the years to come. Genoa, a republic forged in the crucible of maritime ambition, was perpetually riven by internal strife. The great families Doria, Grimaldi, Spinola vied for power, their endless squabbles threatening to tear the city apart. The common folk, burdened by taxes and excluded from governance, grew increasingly restless. Maria Giustiniani, daughter of a prominent aristocratic family, was keenly aware of the simmering discontent. She witnessed firsthand the machinations and intrigues that defined Genoese politics, a world where loyalty was a commodity and power the ultimate prize. Among the most influential figures was Paolo di Novi, a shrewd merchant and a key player in the city's financial affairs. He saw the growing unrest as a threat to his wealth and privilege, and actively worked to maintain the status quo. From among the ranks of the commoners rose Simon Bikengra, a man of the sea, known for his courage, integrity, and unwavering commitment to the welfare of Genoa. He understood the plight of the people and dared to challenge the established order. The tension finally erupted in open rebellion. The commoners, led by Bikengra, stormed the city's main square, demanding reforms and a greater voice in the government. The aristocratic families, caught off guard, prepared to defend their privileges. In a stunning turn of events, Simon Bikengra was elected Doge, the supreme ruler of Genoa. It was a victory for the common people, a rejection of the old aristocratic order. Maria Giustiniani watched the events unfold with a mixture of apprehension and hope. She admired Bikengra's courage and vision, but feared the consequences of his reforms for her family and her class. As Doge, Bikengra faced the daunting task of uniting a divided city. He implemented reforms aimed at curbing the power of the aristocratic families and giving the common people a greater say in government. But his reforms were met with fierce resistance. Paolo di Novi and other powerful nobles secretly plotted to undermine Bikengra's authority and restore the old order. Maria Giustiniani found herself increasingly torn between her family's aristocratic allegiances and her own growing belief in Bikengra's vision for a more just and equitable Genoa. She realized that she was stuck in the middle. The conspiracy against Bikengra reached its climax. Paolo di Novi, backed by a faction of disgruntled nobles, launched a coup, attempting to overthrow the Doge and seize control of the Republic. Genoa teetered on the brink of civil war. The future of the Republic, and the fate of Simone Bikangra hung precariously in the balance. The Black Death had ravaged Genoa, leaving behind a skeletal landscape of empty homes and silent workshops. The once vibrant harbor now echoed with the mournful cries of seagulls rather than the boisterous calls of merchants. Doge Simone Bikangra faced a daunting task: to resurrect a city teetering on the brink of oblivion. The wealthy merchants, those who had survived, were hesitant. Paolo di Novi, a man whose coffers had miraculously remained full during the plague, embodied this cautious spirit. Investing in a city so recently decimated felt like throwing good money after bad. Bikangra, ever the persuasive leader, understood the need for incentives. He offered tax breaks, land grants, and trade privileges to those willing to rebuild their businesses and attract new settlers to Genoa. He spoke of a new Genoa, stronger and more resilient than before. Shipbuilding, the lifeblood of Genoa, was the first sector to show signs of recovery. The demand for ships, essential for trade and defense, spurred activity in the shipyards. New designs, incorporating lessons learned from encounters with other maritime powers, began to emerge. Trade routes, though disrupted, gradually reopened. Genoese merchants, ever resourceful, sought new markets in the east and the west, diversifying their trade portfolio to include goods less susceptible to price fluctuations. Agriculture, often overlooked in Genoa's maritime focus, received renewed attention. Efforts were made to cultivate new lands and improve farming techniques to ensure a stable food supply for the city's growing population. Bikangra's policies attracted new settlers from across Italy and beyond. These newcomers, eager to start anew, brought with them new skills and ideas, further enriching Genoa's cultural tapestry. Infrastructure projects were undertaken to rebuild damaged buildings and construct new ones. New homes, workshops, and public spaces rose from the ashes, slowly transforming the cityscape. The social fabric, torn apart by the plague, was slowly being mended. Orphanages and hospitals were established to care for the vulnerable, and charitable organizations emerged to provide aid to those in need. Maria Giustiniani actively participated in these endeavors. New industries began to flourish, compensating for the loss of traditional ones. The production of textiles, ceramics, and metal goods experienced a resurgence, driven by both local demand and export opportunities. The Genoese economy started to recover with the contribution of families like Di Novi. The economic development helped to bring stability for the near future. Genoa, scarred but not broken, had begun its long climb back from the abyss. The lion of the sea, though wounded, roared once more, its spirit undimmed by the horrors of the past. The recovery was far from complete, but the seeds of renewal had been sown, promising a brighter future for the Republic. The year is 1350. Genoa, though still a formidable maritime power, is plagued by internal discord. Doge Simone Bikangra, elected by the people, finds himself increasingly isolated, surrounded by enemies both within and without. Paolo di Novi, a wealthy merchant and a staunch opponent of Bikangra, uses his vast wealth and influence to undermine the Doge's authority. He skillfully manipulates the rivalries between the aristocratic families, stoking the flames of discontent. Maria Giustiniani, a noblewoman sympathetic to Bikangra's plight, risks everything to warn him of the conspiracies brewing against him. She understands the dangers facing the Republic and fears the consequences of further instability. Bikangra attempts to rally the people, appealing to their sense of patriotism and warning them of the dangers of internal division. His words are met with a mixture of applause and skepticism, reflecting the deep fissures within Genoese society. Meanwhile, Di Novi orchestrates a coalition of disgruntled nobles, promising them wealth and power in exchange for their support in ousting Bikengra. The Doria and Spinola families, eager to reclaim their former influence, eagerly join the plot. Tensions escalate as riots break out in the city, fueled by economic hardship and political unrest. Bikengra's attempts to quell the violence are met with resistance, and the city descends into chaos. Bikengra survives a daring assassination attempt, narrowly escaping with his life. The incident reveals the depth of the conspiracy against him and further destabilizes his rule. Maria Giustiniani tends to Bikengra's wounds, reaffirming her loyalty and urging him to take decisive action to protect himself and the Republic. Taking advantage of Genoa's internal turmoil, the French seek to exert their influence over the Republic, offering military and financial support in exchange for concessions. Bikengra faces a difficult decision: accept French aid and risk becoming a puppet state, or resist and face the consequences of isolation. Bikengra addresses the Great Council, vehemently opposing French interference and appealing to Genoese pride. He argues that Genoa must remain independent and self-reliant, even in the face of adversity. Di Novi tightens his grip on the city, using his influence to silence dissent and consolidate his power. Supporters of Bikengra are arrested, imprisoned, or forced into exile. As the year draws to a close, Bikengra finds himself increasingly isolated and vulnerable. The internal strife and shifting alliances threaten to tear Genoa apart, leaving its future hanging in the balance. The Lion of the Sea is wounded, and its fate remains uncertain. The year is 1363. Genoa, once the undisputed master of the Mediterranean, now faced a relentless tide of challenges. The long wars with Venice had taken their toll, trade routes were contested, and the Republic's coffers were strained. Doge Simon Bikengra, weary but resolute, felt the weight of Genoa's fading glory pressing upon him. The decline wasn't just felt in the halls of power, but also in the counting houses of Genoa's great families. Maria Giustiniani, now managing the family's dwindling assets, struggled to maintain their influence amidst growing financial pressures. The spice trade, once a Giustiniani stronghold, was slowly slipping away. Even the shrewd Paolo Di Novi felt the pinch. His investments, once guaranteed fortunes, now yielded meager returns. The grumbling in the taverns grew louder as Genoa's economic woes trickled down to the merchant class, fostering discontent and resentment. Bikengra, desperate to salvage the situation, convened the Council of Elders. He pleaded for unity, for setting aside familial rivalries in the face of common peril. But old wounds ran deep, and the seeds of discord had already sprouted, choking any hope of collective action. The loss of key territories further weakened Genoa's grip on the Mediterranean. Chios, a vital trading post in the Aegean, fell to a coalition of rival powers. The Genoese carracks, once symbols of invincibility, now returned home battered and bruised, carrying tales of defeat. Maria Giustiniani, forced to sell family heirlooms to cover mounting debts, watched as generations of accumulated wealth were scattered to the winds. The decline was personal, a painful erosion of legacy and pride. Paolo Di Novi, facing bankruptcy and the wrath of unpaid workers, saw his reputation tarnished and his influence diminished. The once respected financier was now a pariah, scorned by those he had once controlled. Simon Bikengra, weakened by years of struggle and burdened by the Republic's failures, succumbed to illness. His death marked the end of an era, a final blow to Genoa's waning fortunes. His dream of a united and powerful Genoa died with him. The map of the Mediterranean was redrawn. Genoa's territories and trade routes, once sprawling across the sea, were now fragmented and controlled by rival powers. Venice, France, and Spain carved up the spoils, marking the definitive end of Genoa's dominance. Yet even in decline, Genoa's legacy endured. The city's shipwrights continued to innovate, pioneering new designs and techniques that would influence maritime technology for centuries to come. The Genoese caravel, a testament to their ingenuity, would play a crucial role in the age of exploration. Genoa's financial acumen also left an indelible mark. The city's banks and merchants continued to facilitate trade and investment, solidifying Genoa's position as a vital center of commerce, even as its political power waned. The spirit of innovation and enterprise remained alive in the heart of the city. The lion of the sea had fallen, but its roar echoed through the ages. Genoa's rise and fall served as a potent reminder of the fleeting nature of empires and the enduring power of innovation, trade, and the unyielding human spirit. The story of Genoa, a testament to maritime ambition and resilience, would continue to be told for generations to come.